Welcome to Normal Ireland Live. Happy Monday. I'm Sarah Dallal, and as you can see, we're looking a tad bit different. That's right, we've had a full rebrand, and this is a really exciting development for Turn Left. It's the same mission, obviously, but with a new look to destroy the oligarchs. Along with the new brand, we've revamped our website, which you can visit by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk. Plus, God, guys, look at all these. Plus, we've launched our new shop, so you can rep your socialist credentials and get yourself some Turn Left merch. Um, how amazing is that? I think it's pretty bloody incredible. Let's bring my guest today, which is Curtis Daly. Hello, Curtis Daly,
Hello.
joining me on a Monday. Guys, we used to do this all the time. I used to be Curtis's guest on Fridays way back
I
when, it
missed
feels
that.
like. So
I
do
missed that a
I.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So today's really exciting. We've launched new rebrands, and we've got some of the merch already. I think we needed a revamp. We needed something fresh. And yeah, our mission stays the same as you correctly put it. We are destroying those oligarchs, but which is a slight facelift. So
Yeah, yeah. A slight. You know what? I love a facelift. I think that'll be me in a few years' time.
stop
But
it.
I'm joking. I'm joking. Thanks, Curtis. But guys, remember to like the stream and make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to support us, then you can go to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to help fund our work. But in other news, coming up on tonight's show, we've got Farage's approval collapsing right in front of us. CNN uncovered disgusting rape academy. Jewish activist suspended from the Greens for anti-Semitism, and lastly, Diane Abbott annihilated Keir Starmer over Peter Mandelson today at Prime Minister's Questions. And like I said, you can help us grow by visiting turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to help on our work, or by becoming a YouTube member for just 99p. But on to our first story. Reform UK are polling in the mid to high 20s, in some cases even topping voting intention. And on the other, Nigel Farage himself has just hit a net approval rating of -21 in a recent opium poll conducted for The Observer between April 15th and the 17th, based on around 2,000 respondents. Let's have a look. You can see it there. Farage's numbers dipping, the light blue. Look at that dip, guys. Oof. Keir Starmer, for example, has been sitting in deeply negative territory for a long time, but that is not surprising, hovering around -40 to -50 for much of the past year. Even now, though, where he's slightly improved, he's still sitting at around -40. Farage, by comparison, is around -20, which is bad, but it is still consistently better than Starmer. And this is proving that this isn't a politics of popularity anymore. It's a politics of who is the least disliked. And I don't think that that's a great position to be in. Because if you're looking across the board, when you look at that graph, you've got Kemi, Starmer, Farage. None of them are actually liked in any meaningful sense, but the entire political class is operating in negative territory. But what's interesting is the type of unpopularity we're dealing with. Starmer's has been this slow erosion of trust, a sense that he doesn't really inspire anything. And I think we can all agree to that. It's just a kind of flat disengagement and anger over various U-turns and avoidable blunders that probably could have been, avoided. And Farage is different. His numbers are more volatile. You can actually see them dip more sharply as his visibility increases. I mean, he's always been quite visible, but I think he's being visible for the wrong reasons at the moment. As we know, over the past few weeks, Farage has been under much heavier scrutiny than usual. Part of that is simply because Reform are now polling so highly. But the moment you move from being a protest party to an actual potential political force, you've got the media, you've got the opponents, and you've even got your own supporters kind of going, hey, so what's it actually going to look like if you were ever to be in government? So you're no longer just throwing punches from the sidelines. You're actually being asked, like, what are you actually going to do? And it's not looking too good at the moment recently with Richard Tice. Richard Tice failed to pay almost £100,000 in corporation tax, benefiting his investment company, which made large donations to Reform UK. The deputy leader of Nigel Farage's party ran 4 shell companies which did not pay any tax on profits between 2020 and 2022. The entities existed purely to receive dividends from Tice's property investment firm and passed on the money, including the cash that tax specialists say is owed to HMRC, to their parent company. It's not looking good, is it? The Reform Party, supposed party of the working people, is actually not for the working people. Who would have thought? And that's where things have started to tighten around Farage. You've got your little cronies avoiding tax, and Farage has been speaking more on foreign policy a little bit, particularly around the rising tensions involving Iran and broader global instability. And I think that's a completely different arena to domestic culture war politics that he's normally used to on Twitter. I think it requires a level of presence and some consistency and some detail when it comes to that sort of stuff that protest politics doesn't always demand. So the more he steps into that space, I think the more he's going to be judged on the basis of his decisions, not just as like a disruptor, but as someone who might have to operate on the world stage. At the same time, let's not forget his long-standing proximity to Trump. I think is coming back into sharper focus. Trump is not in everyone's good books at the moment, and he's not the sort of person you want to be associated with. So I don't know if Nigel wants to take my advice. But as reform rises, so does attention on what the party actually represents beyond the rhetoric it always puts out. Questions around funding, the backgrounds of key figures, tax avoidance, and the reality that many of those involved are themselves wealthy and well connected start to cut through all the bullshit that they feed us. And I think it creates that tension between the anti-establishment image and the material reality that a lot of us are actually facing at the moment. So couple all of those things together, increased visibility, the austerity we're facing, the complex policy scrutiny and this global positioning. I think it's not surprising that Farage's personal ratings start to dip. But I want to bring Curtis. Curtis, what are your thoughts on this? Reform generally as a party, you know, in terms of numbers, doing quite well, but Farage's popularity is dipping. Does this mean Reform is not the one-man band that people presume it to be? And why do you think this dip is happening in the first place?
Well, to be honest, and let's separate the support for Reform, for example, for a second. Nigel Farage has never been particularly popular. I think people need to understand that, right? I think that people often link politicians to political parties. A strange thing in this country, people can separate that. Because we don't have a presidential election, we have a parliamentary democracy. People often vote for parties. In fact, lots of people's loyalties stay with political parties. You even heard politicians say stuff like, vote for us despite of the leader. That's what many Labour MPs tried to do when Jeremy Corbyn was leader. They said, vote for us, not in support of Corbyn, but in spite of him. So there is that layer of distinctiveness. But yeah, Farage has never been particularly popular. A lot of polling shows that he's usually the most disliked. The point isn't about being popular, though, because politics is always divisive. And you'll hear many people say that, well, Margaret Thatcher was a divisive character, Nigel Farage is a divisive politician. You can't not be divisive. It's impossible. Because if you attach yourself to a political ideology, 50% of people are going to hate you. If you attach yourself to a particular political party, people are going to hate you. If you wear the wrong suit, if you wear the wrong tie, whatever it is, people are going to dislike you too. I mean, there are people who've written off Keir Starmer and many other Labour politicians for simply being in the Labour Party. So I'm not actually as concerned about Nigel Farage's personal popularity. What matters is the party polling. But also in that poll, I think if you called it opium, by the way, it's opinion. Opium. I mean, someone was saying in the chat. Someone was saying in the chat, is that a Freudian slip? No, it's not. Behave, people. So yes, in that polling, I mean, Zach Polanski's polling's dipped. So says Ed Davies. In fact, so has Kemi Badenoch. Although, if you actually see who's sort of really gained popularity in the last couple of weeks, it's actually been Kemi, because the Conservatives have also risen in the polls slightly. They've been hitting 18%. Not high, of course, but I think some people are going from Reform to the Conservatives. So the point is, I mean, politicians aren't generally popular. And people look at that poll, and we're talking about Nigel Farage, and someone goes, well, hold on a second, Zach Polanski's lost a couple of percentage points. That's also expected because Zach is facing more media smears. Some of the most crazy stuff. I mean, we've all been through it. We went through it with Jeremy Corbyn. Anyone who threatens political and economic power is going to face, strong opposition. His polling's come down a bit because obviously he was unknown. Then he was known, or sort of. Then he rose in popularity, and he's come down a bit. So, Nigel Farage, not a popular guy. He never will be popular. That doesn't matter. What matters is the political party behind it, Reform. And that's the interesting one. And Reform, they are losing their source. Absolutely. And we've said this before, and I'll reiterate it. Reform are the whining party. All they do is moan and cry and scream, oh no, everyone's against us. Oh no, the BBC's against us, the radical left-wing BBC somehow. Oh no, we lost the Gorton and Denton by-election. It must have been a stitch-up. No one likes a sore loser. No one likes that. No one likes whiners. No one likes crybabies. And that's what Reform have basically become.
I think you make a great point, and that's probably, you're right in that this in the sense that Farage has actually never been popular. I think he's just been maybe the least unpopular at one point. And I
Maybe,
think his limitation, I think, is simply that his party has been this vehicle of anger. And I think when you limit yourself simply to just, I'm an angry party, what do you actually stand for apart from the fact that you have a few disgruntled people? No one's really personally loyal to you, Farage. They're just loyal to the fact that everyone collectively in that space is angry. And I think that's where people are venturing at the moment. But you're also right in saying that the smears that are happening at the moment to Zach Polanski, worries me slightly. I think we spoke about it briefly yesterday. But I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I
mean,
think we'll have to see.
I'm not too worried about the smears against Zach Polanski, because I think this time people have been through it, especially when it comes to anti-Semitism. We're going to talk about that later on. We all went through it with Jeremy Corbyn. People are probably not listening to these anti-Semitic accusations as maybe they did in 2018. Of course, we've got the entire context of the genocide against the Palestinians. And I think people looking at, like, Israel's not popular. Israel is about as popular as America. You know, in fact, actually, I think a lot of people see Israel and America as the same. We need a de-Yankification movement. We also need an anti-Israeli movement. And in fact, you know, pro-Palestine or anti-Israel is becoming less left-wing coded and just the norm. You know, a lot of the things like social movements are attached to just the left, and politicians will say, oh, the bloody left wing. You can't really do that when it comes to people supporting Palestine. I mean, politicians can try and say, oh, it's just these left-wing cabal. Majority of people do not like Israel, so you're calling everyone left-wing, which, to be fair, they probably are. The thing politicians can do, which is effective, is not trying to appease people, because that's what Keir Starmer's done. He's tried to appease people on all sides, and actually now no one likes him. You need to lean into the divisiveness. And this is something that politicians are really scared about, but you cannot win support unless you get your supporters energetic and angry. And what Zach Polanski is doing, which he's been criticised from Labour people, is that he's leaning into his base for now. People say, oh, he's popular online. You know, anytime he won't get into an argument with a Labour MP, he'll just tweet a picture of Peter Manderson's face at them, which is hilarious. And it just drops the join the Green Party link. And it's like, but at the moment, because we're years away from a general election, that's exactly what you need to do. You need an army of volunteers, activists, and money. That's crucial to get people out on the doorstep, to do more broadcasting. Like, he's in the moment where he needs to drum up his own support first and then try and convince people. What politicians love to do in most political parties is completely forget about their base and try and reach over the other aisle. But you alienate your own base, and you often struggle to try and get people that really disagree with you.
That's exactly what happened with Labour, isn't it? Keir Starmer.
Pretty much, yeah.
Really fucked it for Labour. Anyway, fuck Labour. But let's go on to the second stories. We've got quite a few stories to get through, but really great analysis, Curtis. So second story, I think we have to preface that it's incredibly triggering. But there's a story that came out of CNN investigation really recently, end of March, that honestly should be front page news everywhere, and it isn't, because what they've uncovered is not just individual acts of violence, but something far more disturbing and sinister. And it's an entire online ecosystem where men are actively teaching each other how to drug, rape, and abuse women, and crucially, how to get away with it. CNN describes it as a quote-unquote online rape academy, and I wish that was hyperbolic, but that's not even a hyperbole. This is probably the most vile and horrendous thing I've had to read in the longest time. And I really don't want to show graphics during, but there were a few messages that were exposed in the investigation. And one of the most disturbing aspects of this is where it's happening is on a site called Motherless, which describes itself as a quote-unquote moral-free file host. And there were reportedly over 20,000 videos categorized as so-called sleep content. And these are videos where women appear to be unconscious or sedated whilst being sexually assaulted. Some of them have tens of thousands of views. There are tags like hashtag passed out and hashtag I check, where men film themselves lifting a woman's eyelids to prove that she's not awake. And I think people need to sit with that for a second, because it's so grotesque. I don't even know how to even tackle this story, because this isn't hidden in some obscure corner of the dark web. This is operating in spaces that receive millions of visits a month, about 62 million visits a month actually in February. And I think this is where we need to get serious about what this sort of shit represents, because it's not just about a few bad apples or a few bad men. This is about systems that prop up this behavior and affirm it and reward it and allow people to profit off of it. It's about platforms that host this content under the guise of legality, protected by things like safe harbor laws, where they are not held directly responsible for what users upload. And it's also about these algorithms that we're being subjected to that push increasingly extreme content, because that's what drives engagement. And it's also about a culture where violence against women is not only normalized but actively rewarded, like I said earlier, with attention and validation, and in some cases money. There's a psychologist in the report who talks about these spaces creating a kind of brotherhood where men reinforce each other's behaviors. And I read that and I was like, brotherhood in what? Like in violence? Like, talk to me again about the male loneliness epidemic then, where you talk about violence and upload videos where you're doing the things that you're doing. You can't tell me that it's about handing prison sentences and throwing away the key when we aren't even interrogating the root cause of all of this. Misogyny in and of itself forms the fabrics of our societies, the socialization of violence, the unsafe systems that don't believe victims. So the question I'm asking, because there were 62 million visits on that site, like 62 million visits, and how many friends of those people that visited those websites? Because I need to know, particularly men. I need men to understand that this is what's scary about men. It isn't about 62 million visits went into that website in the month of February alone. It's about the 62 million visits and no one said anything. I'm sure a bunch of people, men particularly, visited the site, told a friend, that friend checks it out, and then nothing happens. And I'm sure that of those 62 million visits, at least one told the authorities somewhere. I believe that. But authorities probably did nothing, which is also fucked up. But realistically, a number of those visits, those men who told their friend, and that friend probably just did nothing. So my question now is, where the fuck was the outpouring of anger from any of those people who visited that site, any of those men who visited that site? Where was the movement from men to stop it? And guys, it really scares me. I had a little cry about it yesterday, and it should scare you too, because it's the network around it that absolutely frightens me. And what really tires me is the weaponization of this violence that's been consistently used in politics as a means to score points. Pointing me in the direction of any politician right now who has spoken on this rape academy that's out there. And I'll wait for you guys to put some names in. Instead, this is what we've got. People point to all the wrong fucking things and use Vogue as a means to talk against migration. We have an illegal migration emergency in Kent. Our resources and services are stretched to breaking point. Women and girls are not safe. All members of the opposition at Kent County Council, Tories, Restore, Lib Dems, Green and Labour, refused to debate on a fake procedural point. Our motion, and they all walked out of the council chamber. It's disgraceful. They put party politics before the good of the people of Kent. Didn't she just put party politics at the forefront? This was in response to 602 people arriving on the shores of Dover, by the way. And we have the leader of Kent County Council, Lyndon Kemkaram, using it as a means to say women and girls are not safe. We have never been safe. You know why? Because people who harm us are not some boogeyman in the dark alley. They tend to be people we're in proximity to. People we know. What conversations are being had about protecting women and girls from the systems that allow for this harm to proliferate? Because Vogue is not a migrant issue. I have to keep repeating that. Should I remind people of the former UK councillor Daniel Taylor, who lost his seat on Kent County Council after being jailed? When you read this article, it's even more frightening is what the judge says after finding out that Daniel Taylor subjected his wife to the things that he did. Coercive, abusive control, by the way. The judge says Daniel Taylor was a man who can be charming and pleasant, but you can be nasty and violent. like just call him out for what he is, a nasty, violent, coercive piece of work that happened to be working within the council. The point is that you're left with is this an online infrastructure that enables abuse, a legal framework that struggles to respond to it, judges literally, I think, somewhat enabling this behavior, not putting accountability where it needs to be, and a culture that still, in subtle and not so subtle ways, minimizes it, especially when it happens within relationships. And I think the most uncomfortable truth in all of this, and I know I'm talking a lot, is that this doesn't fit the narrative people like to hold on to, because we're taught to fear the stranger in the alleyway, we're taught to fear the person coming on a boat, but we're not taught to fear the person in our bed. And I think until that changes, not just culturally, but structurally, these kinds of networks where you have 62 million visits happening in 1 month will continue to exist and continue to grow and continue to operate in plain sight, and will continue to have people not say anything around it. And it's evident because it's already happening. Curtis, obviously a very chilling story, but often in UK discourse, it's always about the threat that comes from the other, which I think is rooted in some colonial lie, and not the one that exists within our own periphery. Why do people in politics, particularly, I think, on the right, point to men coming in and not the ones in our own country?
Well, this story is incredibly haunting. It's scary. I'm terrified. I'm terrified for women. I'm terrified for humanity. I mean, 66 million hits on this. And also, this isn't just some kind of like Reddit rabbit hole, which obviously, not saying that's not a problem. It is massive. Absolutely huge. And to be honest, CNN did a massive investigation. It doesn't feel like it's been spoken that much, if I'm going to be completely honest. And that's across mainstream media and independent media. It's a difficult thing. I'm very, very glad that you've equated, or at least contrasted, the right wing's political ideology with blaming people who come on boats, like immigrants and migrants, people who have different faiths, and with what's happening here. Because statistically, rapes or sexual assault are committed by people you know. It is a family member, an uncle, could be your husband, which, as this CNN investigation found, this is a website in which husbands drug their wives, put them basically to sleep and rape them. This isn't, a massive documentary of, small boats and people coming on small boats just to rape people. Of course, does that happen? Of course. But is it in the millions? Absolutely not. I mean, you're asking me the question, why does the right wing do this? I feel like I don't really need to explain it because we all know why. It's to distract, of course, isn't it? The right wing have an enemy, right? The left wing have an enemy, but our enemies, the tagline of this channel, Media for Socialism, but also Destroy the Oligarchs. Our enemy is the ruling class, the billionaires, the people who control society and the economy. That's our enemy. It's okay to have enemies in politics. You can't not have enemies, right? There's winners and losers. I just want, those who are extremely wealthy to be the losers. The right wing, their enemy is those who are the same class as us, working class, working poor, poverty, but they come on racial lines, religious lines, and national lines. That's their enemy. So, of course, in order to build a political census and a persuasive political argument, you have to come up with a narrative. And what's a very good way of getting people angry and scared is when you talk about sexual assault and rape. These are very, very emotive arguments. And then when you attach it to your political enemy, again, immigrants and refugees, that becomes a very, very powerful tool. It's also not anything new. And when I say new, I'm not talking about the last couple of decades when right-wing people say these sorts of things, or when the Sun always likes to come up with racist dog whistles. I'm saying it's nothing new akin to Nazi Germany. The same arguments and narrative were against the Jews. The Jews are coming over here and sexually assaulting people, and they're raping people. So that's what it boils down to. If these people really gave a fucking flying shit about women, of course they don't, they would be screaming at the rooftops about this. But they're not. In fact, Tommy Robinson was, I think he was walking with, no, he wasn't walking with, he shared a video of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's trying to do another parade in Ireland. He wants to become president. And Tommy Robinson like, this guy's a hero. This guy should be the president of Ireland. That guy raped someone, right? Not just an accusation. He was found in court to have raped someone, extremely violently. I believe, I don't go into too much detail, but a procedure had to happen for something to be taken out of the woman because she was so violently raped by Conor McGregor. And Tommy Robinson is supporting him. But I thought that we care about women and girls and stuff. This is a worldwide pandemic, and it is a man issue. Women commit sexual assault, women rape, of course, but we cannot both sides this stuff. We cannot say all people do it. No, there is a problem with men. And I don't get offended when people say, look, there's a problem with men. And you get the response, which is, well, it's not all men. No, I'm sorry. You don't get to say it's not all men. It's enough men. Because it's not just about the men. It's like a pyramid, right? It's not just about the men committing the rapes. You've got below that sexual assault. Below that, you've got rape culture, as in they may not do something, but the attitude towards women is ignored. Like, how many times does a victim come out who's a woman, and the automatic response, which, by the way, not just men, happens with women too, because it's a societal thing, which is that, she's just doing it for money. Now, even Russell Brand, I mean, the guy who no one is surprised that he's a serial sexual abuser and rapist, you're still hearing people say, yeah, you know what? She could have said it years ago. Why now? Like, that idea that we don't believe women. Like, that's a societal problem. You know, I've heard from right-wingers who say the problem with allowing people from Pakistan or India or whatever, that they have bad rape culture and they treat women badly. We have bad rape culture. We have rape culture in the West. Even just little jokes between mates, right? Amount of times you hear rape jokes. Of course, that doesn't mean every time someone makes a really dark joke, they're going to do it. But do you not think that also contributes to it? So yes, I'm not offended when someone goes, men are a problem. I don't feel like I should have a knee-jerk reaction and say, but not all men, right? Because it doesn't offend me. Because I know, one, I've not done any of these things. And two, I know that it's my job as a man to say, actually, we have a problem with men. Right? This story, which is so shocking, we need to be extremely provocative about this. We need to call this out and say, no, men are a problem. The men who enable this, the men who double down, the men who automatically say, well, not all men. Why is your automatic response not all men? And, oh my God, this is horrific. Men need to be better.
You know, you make a really great point. I always equate it to ACAB. People have ACAB tattooed on them. All cops are bad, all cops are bad. And I think we know that not all police officers go into the role and they're bad police officers. I think some of us probably know some police officers, some don't. But I think what we're interrogating here is that not all police officers abuse their power, but they exist in a system that allows for that power to be abused. And I think that's how we need to view it's all men until it's no men, and not all men, because I want to read something to you that I actually took a screenshot of before the show. And it's a Sunday Times article. And this guy said, I'm just going to read it. Never mind the manosphere. Meet the angry young women. New polling finds a radical female cohort passionately dislike the country and the society they live in and will be overwhelmingly voting Green. And then it goes on, the subtext says, never mind the terrifying rise in misogyny that has caused an unprecedented spike in sexism, rape, harassment, online abuse and murder. Just wait until you hear the terrifying way these hysterical little victims are reacting to it. They voted for the Green Party. So someone wrote that subtext in response to that. But the title is Never Mind the Manosphere, Meet the Angry Young Women Who Are Really Angry at the State of the Country. And I'm like, I think we have a right to be angry at the state of the country. Everyone has a right to be angry at the state of the country. But what we're existing at the moment in the UK is an epidemic of violence against women and girls that still is, like you said, being laughed at and dismissed, and still the jokes that are happening around it. Like we still have to learn lessons. People are still like not believing Giselle, and people are still visiting sites where they're sedating their partners, and we still have counsellors. Daniel Taylor's not the only person that's been caught doing this. There was a Tory counsellor recently, a few months back, that did the exact same thing with 4 other men. Yet these people get so the victims are always footnotes in all of this. So I think we have a right to be angry, but this politicization, I think it's political, but this weaponization, even the weaponization of the violence that's happening towards women and girls, only minimizes the things that we're facing. And it completely and utterly angers me that I see men writing articles in the Sunday Times, which shouldn't even be taken seriously anyway, saying that, oh, there's just these toxic feminists that are angry at the things that are happening to them. And by the way, they're going to be voting Green. Like, piss off.
I would go further. I would say it doesn't minimize it. It encourages it. Like, if you are part of a political movement that says, only look at these brown people, these coming from different countries, they're the rapists and they're the bad people, but ignore it in your own country, or ignore when it's, you know, you literally have the Epstein files in which we have a paedophile billionaire cabal that runs the world, right? Then you're not just downplaying victims, you're actively encouraging it, because if you ignore it, that's the same as encouraging it. If you're someone on the right wing and the far right, Restore Britain, whoever, who is only concerned, and by the way, they're not actually concerned, it's faux concern, but only talk about it from a particular minority, then you're basically turning around to all these people who do these horrific things and ignoring it. That's also saying that's absolutely fine. There's no middle ground here.
Completely agree with you. Yeah, and the patriarchy helps to prop that up. But, you know, those buzzwords do trigger some people. But thanks, Curtis. Really, really unsettling and chilling story. But before we move on, it's 2026 and we really want this year to be big for Turn Left. We want to be more ambitious than last year and to really put us on the map. We would like 2026 to be the year where we can have a studio and for our contributors to be paid for the work that we do. We do all of this alongside our full-time jobs, and your support over the years has been amazing. We're ready to take this to the next level. We rely on small donations. If you want to be part of a media organisation that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly on Patreon, or there is another link for a one-time contribution. And you can also become a YouTube member for just 99p. Also, really quickly, guys, I'm running London Marathon on Sunday. This is the last plug that I'll do for London Marathon, but I'm running London Marathon on Sunday, which is so insane. And the link is actually in the Discord. So if you guys want to check out the Discord and you want to donate to the Children's Society, then please feel free and do so. This will be the last time that I ask for any money for the Children's Society. But do it for the kids, guys, but also do it for Turn Left. So next story, we've got 2 more stories to get through, so let's speed through. Tony Greenstein, a Jewish activist, has been suspended from the Green Party. Greenstein has been outspoken about the Palestinian genocide. He is a writer and was one of the founding members of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Incidentally, Greenstein, what is it, Curtis? Is it Greenstein? Sorry. Incidentally, Greenstein was a Labour member before being expelled in 2018 for supposed anti-Semitism. Greenstein was a member of the Brighton local Green Party. His suspension was a local decision. This request to suspend him was made on the 11th of March, with the decision being made on the 15th of April. 11 voted for his suspension and 1 against. To make matters worse, he hadn't been given a specific reason or told that the decision was made due to a specific incident. Instead, he was given a vague response. Basis of the decision documented history of anti-Semitism, including court decisions and recent terrorism charges. The terrorism charges stem from his 9-month suspended prison sentence for attacking Abbott Systems with Palestine Action back in September 2023. This is what Tony Greenstein has said in response to the suspension. As you may or may not know, genuine anti-Semites have never had a problem with anti-Semitism. For 2 years running, Amichai Chikli has organised a conference on fighting anti-Semitism. And who did he invite? The world's anti-Semites. Anyone who has any knowledge of Zionist history knows that Zionism was greeted when it first emerged as a form of Jewish anti-Semitism by most Jews. The anti-Semites wanted us out of their countries, and Zionism agreed. The breach of all human rights of the Palestinians is so egregious, with the latest being the reinstatement into the army of rapists and the routine use of torture against Palestinian prisoners, that anti-Semitism, quote unquote, doesn't wash any longer. Accusing anti-racists of anti-Semitism means that genuine Jew haters are given cover. It's important to point out that when Greenstein was expelled from the Labour Party, this happened under Jeremy Corbyn. This mirrors with today. The Green Party have elected their most aggressive critic of Israel, Zach Polanski, yet the structures within it still allow the same kind of witch hunts that happened under Labour. Zach has been outspoken on the weaponization of anti-Semitism many times as a leader, which he himself has been subjected to anti-Semitism for standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people. The Greens are facing the pressures of anti-Semitism weaponization, as did Jeremy Corbyn when he was Labour leader. Speaking of Labour, Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, Steve Reed, spoke to Huffington Post, calling on Zach Polanski to root out anti-Semitism.
We kicked them out, and they've been able to walk into the Green Party with no one checking their backgrounds. Now, a lot of those people are not only in the Green Party, they have been selected to stand as candidates in these local elections. And Zach Polanski hasn't got a clue who they are because he didn't bother to do the work in advance. He's been very open with that with the public. They don't have a vetting procedure that is up to scratch. They didn't bother to check these people's backgrounds, and they're now putting them up for election in a few weeks' time up and down the country, and the public have no idea that these people who they think are, soft, fluffy Green Party supporters are actually racists.
Of course, the claim that Labour has dealt with anti-Semitism has been founded on no evidence. Quite the contrary. Under Starmer, Labour has purged many Jewish people. Jewish members of the UK's Labour Party are almost 13 times more likely to be expelled for supporting prescribed left-wing groups than non-Jewish members. Jewish Voice for Labour, otherwise known as JVL, also said that Jewish members of the party are 6 times more likely to come under investigation for anti-Semitism than non-Jews. So maybe they should look inward before attacking other parties. Curtis, does this worry you? And are we going to see a replication of what happened under Corbyn's Labour?
I think a lot of people may respond to this and be turned off the Greens. I want to stress that's not a good idea. There are some similarities, of course, with Labour. There's also major differences. The similarity is there is obviously witch hunting going on. Tony Greenstein is a prolific pro-Palestine campaigner. He's Jewish himself. And the reason why he was suspended was over something very vague. It didn't say, this is a particular thing you have done. This is a particular quote you said. In fact, he was a member for like 5 days. But it was a spurious sort of, well, you have terrorism charges and you're just anti-Semitic. Of course, the terrorism charges was standing with Palestine Action and destroying Elbit systems, the same systems that is arming Israel that's committing a genocide. I think that is a terrorism, not destroying, weapons and weapons companies. Now, the local party did this. I mean, this has nothing to do with Zach Polanski. Same with Jeremy Corbyn, of course. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn didn't handpick certain people. Well, to be fair, he did when you read the reports. He was pressurized to, I think, with like Ken Livingstone, for example, but he was a high-profile figure. But this isn't Zach Polanski going in and choosing people to kick out. So I want to stress that it's not a good idea to then go, screw the Greens then, because materially, the Greens will have a better policy than Labour will ever have. I mean, once again, the Labour Party was the most pro-Palestine it had ever been under Jeremy Corbyn. But what underpins that is the most horrific Zionist MPs who would have stopped Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, they did stop him, right? Had he won an election, there is no way he would have been able to implement some of the anti-Israel policies we wanted for him to do. Whereas the Greens, they're a democratic party. The majority of people inside the party absolutely stand with Palestine. There was a recent Zionism is racism motion. Bit of a kerfuffle going on in there. A lot of tech issues, actually. We're kind of used to that. But obviously, when it gets to the main conference, that's going to pass, most likely. People support Palestine in the Greens. There is a small amount of people, of course, small amount of pro-Israel and Zionist people in the Greens, like every single political party. That just happens. It also wasn't a national decision to get rid of Tony Greenstein. It was 11 people at a local meeting who kind of waited for, well, as soon as he announced he joined the party, they just went for him. So it does tell me that there's still issues with structure, which is ironic, actually, because Steve Reed's saying, well, Zach Polanski hasn't bothered to do the vetting process and is letting any crank in and any racist in. Well, actually, what we're seeing is someone being kicked out for no good reason. Like, they're kicking people out easier than what you would say is letting people in. So it's just crazy to say. Also, Steve Reed, Morgan McSweeney's guy, has nothing to say about anti-Semitism when it comes to Labour. As you helpfully pointed out, Jewish Voice for Liberation, said that basically, if you're Jewish, you're more likely to be kicked out of the Labour Party if you're anti-Zionist. Again, it's the right kind of Jew. Whereas there isn't a nationwide problem with the Greens. Having said that, we obviously need to be very cautious because we cannot allow this to happen again. I think the left has made leaps and bounds in Palestine solidarity. You're seeing week in, week out, thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands of people, are standing out or standing or marching in support of Palestine. That's all being done by left-wing groups and organizations. The Greens, again, are probably going to pass a Zionism is racism motion, the most radical kind of proposal any political party has ever done when it comes to standing with Palestine. And again, the Green Party policy is to absolutely stop sending weapons to Israel, and stop selling funds to them as too. So I think materially, policy, it's still far better than the Labour Party. It's not a reason to leave the Greens or be, or shun them away. Doesn't mean you should be skeptical, because no matter which political party, whether the left are in it or not, there is going to be Zionist influence. That's going to happen. The real test we want to see is, will the Greens capitulate? This is a potential taster of maybe them capitulating, and they cannot do that. I know I think there's a temptation to do so, because it's like, oh, we're so close. We're rising in the polls. Now we need to moderate ourselves because we don't want to put off people. I get the temptation, but as we've seen under Jeremy Corbyn, he had that same temptation. But those on the other side, i.e. Zionists, will never accept a middle ground. Every single time Jeremy Corbyn capitulated just a little bit, you didn't have people like Margaret Hodge go, okay, that's fine now. She was like, no, you need to do this, you need to do that. You basically need to be full-on pro-Israel. So that's where capitulation gets you. And that is my worry. That happens. But I do think it is different insofar that Labour is an anti-democratic party, extremely anti-democratic. Jeremy Corbyn didn't bring in the democratic measures, which he needed to, especially mandatory reselection. That was something that I think was crucial to the Corbyn movement and the project, and the reason why it failed, because we couldn't kick out MPs who were just horrendous, not just on Israel, but on everything when it comes to privatization, taking money from corporations, right? But the Greens have a mass democratic party, and I think power is with people and numbers. So I think the Greens, I don't expect the Greens to do a full-on capitulation like Labour, but we need to hold their feet to the fire. We need to keep a close eye on this, because we shouldn't be having people like Tony Greenstein, who is Jewish but also anti-Zionist, getting kicked out of a party after 5 days. It's crazy.
Great point. I completely agree with you, and I think there are echoes there, but I think it is one of those things where you do have to watch relatively carefully. I think I do itch at the thought that that there might be some sort of blunder. I'm very, very, very cautious when approaching parties that I like. That is my personal opinion. I do like the Green Party. That is my own personal opinion, not Tanya's opinion. But I don't think it's not necessarily a direct replication, but the early signs of what you said, a familiar pattern where you've got political pressures, and then subsequently there will be media framing, and I think internal dynamics that might collide in a way that could be detrimental. So I think I am keeping a watchful eye, but I think it's one of those things where we have to see anti-Semitism is real, and it exists on the left just as much as it exists on the right, and I don't think it's anything that we're shying away from. But I do think that we have to be very real with how it manifests itself, and that when it does manifest, that we interrogate that accordingly, and that it is evidenced, and that it's something that is believed. But yeah, I think definitely something to watch. So yeah, thanks, Curtis. Final story, one more story. Before we go to the comments, as we know, Keir Starmer stood in front of the Commons and tried to explain the Peter Mandelson situation, and he was grilled by MPs, and rightfully so. However, it was this from Diane Abbott that stole the show.
Dame Diane Abbott. Sorry, Diane Abbott.
The Prime Minister has gone on at considerable length about process and procedure. But ordinary people don't really care about process and procedure. They want transparency, and they want to know that they can have confidence in the words of elected politicians, like all of us in this chamber. On the question of Peter Mandelson, it was in the 90s that Peter Mandelson had to resign from the cabinet for the first time because of his dealings with the millionaire Geoffrey Robinson. It was a few years later he had to resign from the cabinet for the second time because of his relationships with the billionaire Hinduja family. Peter Mandelson has a history. Peter Mandelson has a history. And what this House wants to know is why, knowing Peter Mandelson's history, going back now 30 years, and given what has been known, it's one thing to say, as he insists on saying, nobody told me. Nobody told me anything. Nobody told me. The question is, why didn't the Prime Minister ask?
Mr. Speaker, in relation to her question, let me be clear. I should not have appointed Peter Mandelson. As soon as the further revelations came to light, I asked the Cabinet Secretary to review the process so I could be assured about the process. He wrote to me on the 16th of September, setting out the conclusions of that review and assuring me the process had been followed properly.
What a brilliant question. Curtis, I just wanted to get your reaction to Diane's questions.
Ooh, I tell you what. Oh, she absolutely annihilated him, didn't she? Really good stuff. And do you know what? I felt like this was something that was very cathartic. You know, Diane Abbott has been treated appallingly by the Labour Party, especially by Keir Starmer, like disgustingly. And usually when, very few left-wing MPs are left, right? But when they say something against Keir Starmer, Keir comes up with a snarky jibe. Doesn't seem very snarky there, does he? Because Diane Abbott perfectly explained to Keir Starmer, which, in fact, what we all knew, is that you can't play naive with Peter Mandelson, because it's not like that Peter Mandelson had a clean record and then until recently he was dodgy. We all knew how dodgy Peter Mandelson was. I mean, Diane Abbott perfectly explained there how Mandelson was sacked repeatedly in his shadow cabinet. He's had dodgy dealings with extremely rich people. When it comes to his link to Jeffrey Epstein, that was apparent for years. Years. There's images of them together way before Keir Starmer even joined the Labour Party, let alone become an MP. We knew that. Yet Keir Starmer still pushed for him to have a role and made him ambassador of the US. So even if we accept he had no idea, his hands are not clean. He still chose to bring in an extremely politically toxic person, not just politically toxic, just generally toxic. I mean, his nickname was the Dark Prince, or Prince of Darkness, whatever, you know. And you do not bring in someone who's friends of a paedophile. Like, I can't believe that we're saying this, but rule number one in politics is there's certain scandals, things you could probably get away with. Paedophilia isn't one of them. And if you're going to appoint someone who was like even vaguely close to the world's most notorious paedophile, absolutely do not have him in Parliament or have him in your government. Yet he'd done that anyway. Now, of course, he wants us to believe that he had no idea. Now, look, we've heard contradicting evidence. We've heard evidence, or at least sources from people saying that the Foreign Office worked on Keir Starmer's orders or understanding, that Peter Mandelson was definitely wanted. And then, of course, we heard the official narrative, which is that Keir Starmer and David Lammy had no idea. I still find it incredibly hard to believe that a low-level civil servant would make that kind of decision, especially about Peter Mandelson, and not tell Keir Starmer. That's absolutely crazy. But I think what Diana says at the end, which is great, which is that it's the fact that you didn't ask the question. Why? First, let alone why did you want me in the first place, as I just laid out. But, you know, just why are you not questioning this man? Why are you not saying, why is Morgan McSweeney pushing this guy on me? It's absolutely crazy. Of course, yes, he was grilled at PMQs. And by the way, he said he was going to have his angry eyes on today. He's going to be really furious. He still looks completely flat. I mean, it is wild to me that this man is still prime minister. I don't know how he hasn't gone yet. And he vows to stay until the next election. He's going to get absolutely destroyed in May. And to be honest, there's no replacement. I've always said that Wes Streeting was the one who tried to be his replacement, but he obviously had issues with Peter Mandelson. He had to bring out his messages, his private messages with Mandelson, right? And I think that's kind of sort of pushed him by the wayside. But also the fact that he only won a seat by 500 votes against Liam Mohammed, which, by the way, I hope Liam Mohammed runs again and fucking eviscerates Wes Streeting because I absolutely despise that man. But yeah, there's no other replacement. But I think if Keir Starmer doesn't go for this, he can literally do anything, can't he? And he'll still be protected. You are on mute. You okay?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we've got a big delay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Uh-oh.
Hello?
Why don't you leave and come back? It was all going well. It was all going well. I mean, what do I say? I'll tell you what. Shall I do a shameful plug again? For you in the chat, please go to our new website. We've got a revamped website and we've got content on there now. It automatically updates new videos. Shop our merchandise as well. We've got a shop out. So if you want to start repping this, then you can too. Sarah, are you back with us? That's strange. We've got a big delay there. I tell you what though, we started on time and Sarah's camera looked really good. So to be honest, no tech issues until like right at the end. And we're about to go to comments. So, but I think in order to upgrade our operations even more, then please maybe drop some donations. I know you've been incredibly generous. In fact, I think let's go to our comments now. Actually, Sarah will come back in. Let's check. No, not yet. 2 seconds. There you go. We should be able to hear our producer.
Hello. Can you hear me all right? I'm not sure where Sarah's gone.
No, I don't know. It was all going fine. Then there was like a big, 30-second delay.
Oh God. I'm sure she'll be back in a second. I can see that she's like left the actual studio, so I'm sure she's probably just disconnected for a second and she'll be back any moment now.
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's a computer that's heated up because she bought a HP and HPs suck, right? I think we need to raise enough money where we can get her a decent laptop which can handle like a basic video call.
Let's by the way, hi everyone, and obviously good show so far. Let's while we're waiting for Sarah, let's go through she has just popped back in, but I'm just gonna give her a second. Let's quickly, I'll let Sarah add herself in. Oh,
Can you hear me? Oh, can you get me?
Yeah.
Yeah, but your microphone's a bit weird.
Yeah, can you go a bit louder?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, just be louder. Turn yourself up.
To speak like super,
No,
high. I mean,
it's because it's gone through. It's gone through your earphones. 1 second. Speak now.
It's not. My input's still my line, but my output's my AirPods. Yeah, I think it's definitely coming through here, but
Yeah, I think it's coming through.
You're just very, very, very quiet. I'm just going to turn up your volume and see if that.
yeah.
Can you turn up your volume knob on your end?
Let me do it. Sorry, guys. It wouldn't be a Turn Left show if we didn't have just a little bit of an issue.
At least we got to the end.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, it sounds fine now. I think it sounds better.
Oh,
yeah, it's louder.
I fiddled with the knob. Oh.
Way.
Oh. Whoa. Guys, keep it PG.
If that's not worth a donation, I don't know what is. Let's go through the donations and memberships. Okay, so Michael gifted 1 membership. Thank you so much, Michael. We also had from the amazing Steve as well 50 memberships.
Wow!
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so
you.
much, Steve. I've got to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling just to get past those 50 memberships because there's so many. We had a really lovely donation off of Jamie who said, I don't have anything interesting to say. I'm sure you do.
Aw.
I just really appreciate you guys and everything.
Thank
that
you.
do.
We really appreciate you. We appreciate
do.
everyone who comes and watches every show.
Me too.
We had Michael who also gifted a membership. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Michael.
Thank you.
We had one of the people with one of my favorite names, Antifa Vegan Boy. Get that name on GB News. Gifting 10 memberships.
What's in the profile picture? I want to know. It's a hat, sunglasses, but what is it?
Is it a golf ball?
It's not. Well, it's not got dimples.
It kind of looks like a giant It looks like a giant gobstopper, but it's too big. I don't know what it is.
I don't play.
Antifa, let us know in the comments. Not really. Rachel Atwood donated $5 and said,
Thank
"Hey
you.
gang,
Thank
just
you.
wanted to share that my pal Pete Mitchell is running as a Green candidate in Newcastle next month. Possible guest suggestion." Okay.
That's
Okay.
Thank you.
Curtis will happily make a note of that because I'm not organised enough for it. Thank you, Rachel. And then, not really, Rachel also said and gave another $2.
Oh,
How's the taper going, Sarah?
It's
Skin
going.
crawling vibes?
I feel like I'm getting injuries, but it's all in my head. Like it's all in my head. I'm just nervous about Sunday. I'm like super nervous. So yeah, but hopefully it goes well.
I'm sure it will. And then we've also got Deus Ex Ollie saying, "For the new
Thanks,
look,
Ollie.
Yay!
£2."
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ollie. Right, let's come to the actual starred comments. I'm going to go from the top. We had some comments about the new layouts and designs and branding. So, someone put, "The style reminds me of the Fast and the Furious." Is that a
We
good
got
thing?
that. We got that on Twitter. It made me laugh. We announced on Twitter, and then someone replied with like, it was Vin Diesel, and it's got the Fast and Furious font that just says family. I was like, I love this. And then they go, which one's Paul Walker though? And I was like, well, that got fucking dark pretty damn quick. Hopefully none of us. And then someone put like the Fast and Furious turn left. A lot of us compared us to Top Gear. I mean, it's just italic text, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
Is that
But I'm
Top
glad
Gear
that people
post or
like it.
pre Jeremy Clarkson? Also, William said, "Start over and give us Lord of the Rings font, please. Turn left."
Absolutely not.
Half.
Absolutely not.
I'm a big fantasy geek, so I would absolutely love that.
Nerd.
Nerd alert.
HQ2 gave us a, I'm not sure if it's a rap or a poem, but I'm going to get Curtis to read it out.
Oh, okay. MC Daly on the scene, about to tear out an oligarch spleen. When it comes to socialism, I'm the most keen, and when it comes to robbing cucks, I'm the most mean. Khaled!
DJ Khaled.
Do you like that?
That was good. That was good.
Autumn put, "This is very high tech." Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It would have been, if it
For
would have
most
been
of the show,
private-
anyway.
I know.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks,
Yeah,
Sarah.
sorry.
Thanks, Sarah.
Michael put, "Forget the rebranding. They're starting on time. My wee mind is blown." Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. Not gonna lie.
We're doing
And then just
well.
generally lots more comments like this. Just the new branding is great. And
Thanks,
Autumn put,
guys.
"Turn left, glow up." Now on to
Yeah, I like that.
more topical stuff. Michael put, "Opium? Question? More like copium for Farage."
Guys,
And then
I'm so
Flo-
sorry.
I didn't
And then-
clock it until someone said it in
Neither
the
did I.
comments, and I
That's
thought
what
I
I'm
need to
sorry.
call you out on that one.
No, please.
Just
please,
to
I
be
didn't-
mean.
Guys, I didn't mean opium. I got back from work at 6 something. I'm so sorry.
And then Flow Snake put, "Opinion? Freudian slip, Sarah."
I promise I
And
don't
then
do those things in my spare time.
Actual wanting to know, are you actually sitting inside the new Turn Left shop?
Well, it's funny because everything else isn't turned left. It's just this T-shirt and what I'm wearing. But yeah, I guess it looks like I'm in a shop. I don't know. And we have an online shop. If you want to go to shop.turnleftmedia.co.uk.
Plug. Right, onto the actual really core part of the story.
Wait, is this? Can I just Who is this in the chat? Have a look, Lewis.
Did I miss
Who
the
is
break?
this in the chat?
I'm looking.
We
at
got
the
some-
start
we
comments
got-
right now.
We've got some friends. Shall I bring them out? We've got some friends in the chat. Hello, Navara Media with an I. Good to see you. Actually, it's the first time you've come into our show. Welcome. I don't know who the producers behind the scenes, but good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah, good.
Hi, Navara team.
Hey, Navara.
Also, Harriet Williamson was on the show today. I'm so happy. She's amazing. She'll be on our show soon. So when I saw her on the show, I was like, oh my god, it's Harriet. So yeah.
Harriet actually recently helped me out with a story as well recently. I was chatting with her over messages and she was helping me out with something. She is amazing. Right, onto the actual cost parts of the story. Somebody put Grape Academy thing, obviously using kind of like social media friendly language. But I found this story really interesting, not just because of the scope and scale of it, but because like where it's been covered. And it kind of obviously it ties into what you guys were saying, right? About like how people are only talking about certain stories. Like I am like, my life is TikTok, and this was massively covered by lots of people on TikTok. But when I went to other platforms, it was absent in so many different, in different places. And especially
I don't
places
use
like X.
And I don't really use TikTok, so I was like, why is no one talking about this?
No one's talking about it. But is that not a testament to the fact that when it comes to Vogue, it tends to be a footnote in a lot of people's discussions? That I find that even with the framing in mainstream media when it comes to violence against women and girls, the way that it's framed, go look into media, like media literacy is so important, but look into the way that it's framed, that it will talk of the men in a way that doesn't make them seem as though they are the perpetrator. And I think that that's really important. But then what worries me, like you said, Lewis, and this is why I felt like it was so important to bring this up today in the script or on today's show, is that there's zero coverage on this. 62 million visits in the month of February alone is enough to frighten anyone. That should scare you. Like who? And when you read the article, there were Royal Mail deliveries happening that were being shipped from the US to the UK of things to sedate women. Like, it's happening here. Like, there's no shadow of a doubt that's happening here. And it needs to fucking frighten people. It honestly scares me. I genuinely, guys, not to be dramatic, but I genuinely was crying yesterday about this story because I'm like, how are we still living in a time where women are still so dismissed, so silent, so silenced, and then just profited off of? Like, people are literally trying to score points off of the fact that there's an epidemic of violence in the UK when it comes to violence against women and girls that men disproportionately cause. And men disproportionately cause the violence happening towards other men. So I will continue to say, whether it's contentious or not, this is my personal opinion, that I do believe it's all men until it's no men, because of those 62 million visits, like I said in the story earlier, how many of those 62 million people or visits, those people that visited, told a friend and that friend did nothing? That scares me. It's fucking frightening.
I mean, I absolutely not blame. I do not blame people, and I do not blame women like you when they say it's all men for now. I do not blame you, because at the moment it's. I think even when we say, oh, it's enough men, it could be the majority of men. Again, I'm not saying that the majority of men are actively committing these crimes, but as I was saying earlier, you've got those who are committing the crimes, and then you've got those that make excuses for them, and then you've got those that ignore them, and then when again either it's not believing women. When a famous actor, again, like Russell Brand, has accusations against them, we always say, oh, well, they're just doing it to get money. Things like that, or just everyday rape culture, which is intrinsic in not just across the world, but here at home too.
Well, this actually goes back to it's actually relevant. So what Harriet Williamson was helping me with is a story that was in The Sun last week where it was a Scottish Sun, and they went to Dumfries in Scotland, and there's a migrant hotel there at the moment, and there was a story of like two teenage girls who basically came into some sort of incident in the city centre, and then the police investigated, and it wasn't like somebody was like sexually assaulted. It was more a case of like being kind of like harassed, and the rumor went around the town that it was like the asylum seekers, the local asylum seekers. And that is how the Scottish Sun framed it. They even inserted an official police statement, which didn't actually say it was asylum seekers, but they constructed this entire article to make it look like it was asylum seekers. But the source was a local mum who wasn't even the mum of these girls. And the headline was that children were being given rape alarms because of the asylum seekers. And this was the entire story. Basically, they fabricated everything. And Harriet helped me get some official information that I couldn't get because she's an official journalist and I'm not. And when you actually look at what else happened on that specific day that they published the story, is that there was a genuine case. I think it was a teacher in the town who literally got jailed that day for doing sexually related activity with children. And instead of, reporting on an actual story where there's this white teacher with kids in a school doing bad things, they chose to manufacture a story about asylum seekers because the source that it was asylum seekers was not the police, it wasn't any facts, it was a local mum who said that she thought it was asylum seekers. And this is what I'm talking about. We're never going to be able to actually not fix the issue because it'll never be fixed, but even fight against the issue of violence against women and children until we're talking in a reality. But these outlets don't want to live in reality. And by the way, I actually complained to their editorial team and never heard back from them. So they don't care. They just don't care, guys. It's like what you said about, I think you brought up Tommy Robinson earlier, Curtis, right? His last big march, because he's got another one coming up in a few weeks. The last one was, one of the special guests was a former IDF Australian far-right guy who literally just got recently out of jail for domestic violence against his wife, which he then broke the conditions of and then got penalised legally in some other way. And then he was a special guest and speaker at Tommy Robinson's march. Make it make sense.
You could not make it up.
You couldn't make it up.
So I don't have the finer details, but maybe Sarah does. But Graham said, is this a British thing or is it an American to get 62 million a month?
I don't know if it's a British or American thing.
I'm sure it's a global.
It's a global thing that everyone's accessing and able to access.
I mean, I do wonder actually. It might be interesting to do some deep dive on this and see if CNN has posted where the traffic's coming from. Of course, it'll be globally, but where's it coming from the most? That'll be interesting.
There was somebody who did actually post a deeper analysis of it yesterday. I saw on social media. I can't remember where it came from, but they wanted to find out actually how many individual users it actually was, as opposed to just the high number of 60 million, which is obviously a lot. And they broke it down to around 2 to 3 million, I think, which is obviously still a lot of individual users. But as well, somebody else also pointed out is that Michael said, what scares me is now that the site has been spoken about, how much higher the views will be next month.
Yeah.
So that's really depressing, but also I think it's a good point, Michael. Yeah.
Excellent point. But I think it's so important to talk about, because then we can still keep pointing to the structures that kind of enable these sites to exist. So it's a structural issue that needs interrogating. I don't know. It has to be spoken about, unfortunately.
I've done lots of investigations into media bias, and when you get stories that make it into the media and ones that don't, it's sad to say, but I would say from my research on daily court filings in England and Wales, there's around at least 40 to 50 cases every day of men being in court, and I'm saying in court because it doesn't mean they're being found guilty, whether it's sentencing, whether it's appeals, whatever it might be, per day, and it's related to anything to do with sexual violence and just regular violence against women and children. But you will only ever see usually 3 to 4 of those stories actually even make it into the news. And as you can imagine, because of the bias of certain media outlets, most of the stories get handpicked to, paint a particular narrative, essentially. Somebody also mentioned as well Giselle Pellico. Speaking of Giselle Pellico, she has an autobiography out now. I started it recently, though I did have to stop listening after a while. But I'm putting it out there just because I do think it is obviously really interesting to probably go and read something like that. And we also recently had a Giselle Pellico style case in end of December, right before Christmas. That happened in the UK. The story was much smaller at first. It's still awful, but it was in the region of less than single digits of men. And what was interesting about the story, it was basically the exact same thing, a woman being drugged and basically, passed around, sold around to other men, is that you can actually look at the original article and it was white man, black man, Asian man. And it's for the people who got caught, just to show you how widespread it is across just every, it doesn't matter where people are from. This happens amongst all groups and all men. But then what's happened since then is come out that there's potentially dozens, potentially even hundreds of people who may have been involved in this. Essentially, our own Giselle Pellico barely got any coverage. Barely got any coverage.
It doesn't get coverage. This sort
And
of
that's
feels
the
like
thing.
it doesn't suit a narrative. Yeah.
I said it smashes the narrative that people from particular within particular borders or races or faiths contribute to certain crimes. It's not. Again, it's a men issue. It's a men issue across the world. Like we do have rape culture globally. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter what your religion is. We have a global epidemic of men committing sexual assault and rapes.
I'm going to bring this next comment up, but I just want to preface it with I don't think HQ2 is saying it in like a bad way. I think HQ2 is wanting this as a genuine discussion. But if we always believe victims from the get-go, doesn't that pave the way for a more bad actors to exploit that norm? Do you guys want to jump in on that?
It's an interesting one because I think it's an important comment to make because lots of people do make it, but as in like people who make false accusations, is that what this comment's alluding to?
I think so.
That?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happens so rarely. Like I think it barely happens. I think the thing that worries me the most is the number of people who don't feel safe enough to come forward as a result of how these systems are propped up. There is still that fear of not being believed. There is still underinvestment in a lot of these charities, the domestic abuse charities, these shelters that don't have enough funding to actually deal with the overwhelming amount of abuse that's happening up and down the country. So I think we need to be asking the right questions. Like, are we doing enough for the actual victims that we have currently? And the answer is no. The number of prosecutions that are happening in terms of rape and sexual assault are still very, very low. The fear that women have, particularly from minoritized communities, black and brown communities, when it comes to coming forward because of the idea of shame or the idea of not being believed, is something that we need to be interrogating. Whether bad actors are here or there, I don't think it's something. I think it's like shadow boxing potential harm that doesn't actually exist. And then when I think of whether, now people are going to push back on me slightly, how detrimental these accusations are, I think of Trump, who is in office currently despite having a plethora of things against him. I think of Andrew, who's still walking around after being allegedly accused of things that he's been accused of. I know these are people who are in a different class to everyone, but they're still navigating life in a way that doesn't seem fair on victims. So I think when we still see people like Chris Brown able to come into the country despite the things that happened in his relationship, do the things that they did, Russell Brand now going into the pipeline of Christianity to make him seem as though he's holier than thou. Like, men sometimes come out pretty unscathed with these quote unquote accusations that happen. So I think we need to be asking the right questions, and it's, are we doing enough for actual victims, and are there enough victims actually coming forward to put these perpetrators to rights? But no, we aren't, because we're not doing them justice. We haven't created safe spaces.
I don't think I can vibe. Look, obviously, we welcome questions and provocative questions to think about it. I'm not sure if I vibe with this because, those that do false accusations are not motivated by whether we believe people or not, because currently at the moment, we don't believe victims. Let's be honest, we don't really believe victims. The reason why women most of the time don't go to the police is many things. One, they don't feel like they'll be trusted. Two, they'll feel like actually they're already assumed that they're lying. And three, it's re-traumatizing. Now, if you're someone against a famous person or someone with power, you can have very detrimental consequences. If your name is somehow doxed, you'll get attacks from those that defend a particular celebrity. Your life is in danger. So there's like a lack of incentive. I'm not saying that we should incentivize people. It should be neutral, right? But there's like a disincentive for people to go and do something about this. So I don't really see how we're in any danger of more people making false accusations. I think there's always going to be a certain number of people who make false accusations because they're just bad people. And I think making it easier systematically, but also culturally, like believing people, doesn't mean that it's going to make it easier for false accusations. Because remember, most rapes don't lead to conviction. Part of that is because, unfortunately, fortunately, unfortunately, you have to have evidence, right? So, we have a threshold of criminality, which is good, obviously, but also rape is very, very difficult to prove. There are obviously certain ways to do it. There's certain things that can happen. So even if like enough evidence has been provided where the police will take it on, it most likely won't be. It won't result in a conviction. So there's really no incentive for you to lie, is there? I mean, nothing's going to happen anyway. Someone left in the chat, though, maybe it could be more circumstantial issues like Karim Khan. Again, with that, though, you can't immediately throw out that it wasn't sexual abuse, but of course you can be like, this guy, ICC prosecutor is charging Israel, and suddenly this comes about. Yes, you can obviously hold that thought in your head.
Yeah.
But I don't think
nuance,
we're
right?
yes, but I don't think we're in any danger by saying we need to believe women that suddenly there's going to be like a plethora of people making false accusations. I just don't think it works that way. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't want to do that, and I think it just takes a small minority of sick-minded people to make a false accusation. I don't see that number going up.
But it doesn't happen.
I think as well as you brought up with the example there with Karim Khan, there's been other examples as well, like with Joe Biden. With Joe Biden, Tara Reid accused him of sexual assault. It was very deeply investigated. The New York Times actually did a really good job with this. And what happened about a year after that investigation came out was that Tara Reid moved to Russia. So you can kind of put two and two together there and think, yeah, but we need to almost attach these like really famous stories away from reality, because in the political sphere, the new Prime Minister of Hungary, who just beat Orban, his ex-wife, who was, I believe, in Orban's cabinet, accused him of domestic violence during the campaign. Like, I think there's certain situations like that where I think it's like, to think, is this a political motivation? But that is so removed from reality. We're talking about a small handful of cases. In everybody's everyday lives, it's important to believe victims. And it's not saying that, they're 100% right, and therefore, it means that person 100% did it. It's about not doubting them and not questioning them. It's about taking everything that they say seriously, so they feel comfortable enough to express it. So if even when there is that odd person who chooses to take advantage of a situation and weaponize it, or misuse people's trust when it comes to accusing somebody, yes, it does happen, but it's so rare. It's incredibly rare.
I think it's an important distinction which you've laid out, and I want to echo. Which when we say believe all women, it doesn't necessarily mean that when a woman makes accusation that the man is guilty and that you always side with the woman. It's saying you always believe them in taking them seriously enough that you do something about it. To not say, "Oh, you sure? Don't go to the police." It's like saying, "I absolutely believe you insofar that you should be encouraged to go to the police," and then let it, let the system do its thing. Again, it's a very flawed system, but let the evidence happen, and then we'll see whether it's true or not. That's what it means. It doesn't automatically mean you're absolutely right and the man is absolutely wrong. It just says that we need to incentivize people to speak out, because at the moment, women do not feel like they are believed. So they're keeping quiet. And then oftentimes when people say, all these accusations, when it's against like a famous person, it always happens at the same time. Funny that. Yes, because it has a multiplier effect. When one woman is brave enough to speak out against a particular person, other women are like, someone else has done it. That's the push I need. And then when there's more people that come out, women feel more comfortable, because like, do you know what? I'm actually going to be believed this time because it's happened. 10 women have come forward about it. So that's why often there's a multiplier effect where it seems it all comes out at once. Also, and the media attention. Like there will be one or two people that might make an accusation 10 years ago, wasn't picked up. And when more and more people start making these accusations, then the media will also go, what's going on here? So there's also that we're just finding out about things, about accusations that happened a long time ago.
Yeah, and in these systems, they're just not safe enough. Like, as someone who was a domestic abuse caseworker for a good proportion of my life, I understand the fear that sits within men who are victims, and women particularly who are victims, because of that fear of not being believed. And can I just put a comment up really quickly? This person's calling me insane. She's completely insane, trying to compare some lying slapper ruining lives with Trump. And this literally echoes the very thing that we're talking about, does it not? The dismissive attitude towards women who speak about violence against women and girls, the silencing of us, but then also the victim blaming and the expletives being used towards someone and assuming that they're lying by calling them a slapper. Like, this is exactly the issue that we're dealing with. And I brought this comment up on purpose because you called me insane. And I don't think it's insane to talk about violence against women and girls. I think it's even more insane to not be asking the right questions, or even more insane to not even interrogate the fact that we have an epidemic of violence in the country. By the way, HQ2, we still love you. Like, it's a great question that you asked. And I think it's one that it's good to have dialogue about this stuff. But this person don't love you. I think you're horrible. I'm sorry. What a horrible, aggressive comment to make. And this is exactly why we cannot have safer spaces for victims to come forward, because we have people like this guy who go, oh, or woman, who knows, saying, oh, well, you're lying. Like,
And
really?
Sean, you are part of the problem. You are absolutely part of the problem. So you must be incredibly embarrassed that you left that comment. I don't know if you thought we were going to show it, but we do like to show Spicer comments and dickhead comments. You're a dickhead. You are a dickhead, and your shitty fucking EU flag doesn't make you any more liberal than anyone else, right? Because clearly not. You're a fucking gimp.
And that's why I brought up this comment as well, saying anyone that reacts with "not all men" is usually a massive danger themselves.
100%.
And this always goes back to the Southport rioters when The Guardian did their freedom of information requests and found out that 41% of the around, I think, 800 to 900 people who were arrested related to Southport unrest during that period, it was 41% of them have been previously accused of domestic violence. And I've got some
loads of them.
I've got some of those freedom of requests as well, and it's like some of them, it's assault, theft, it's violence, it's all these different crimes. That was only the most important headline and piece of data out of all the information that came out from those people, because again, 41% of the almost 1,000 people arrested accused of domestic violence, the people who were going out and saying it was Stockport didn't was unable to name any of the victims and still believed that it was some random guy called Ali Al-Shikati. This happened the other day recently, didn't it, with there's been a big a new one online where somebody has been accused of being like gang raped or something by like what I think people online were saying asylum seekers, and there was protests a few days ago. And it's kind of like, okay, if that actually happened, which so far they still can't find evidence of it actually happening, then go out and protest. But why are you only going out when you think it's an asylum seeker?
Yes,
because people want to disassociate themselves, remove themselves from the blame of harm. If we were to say that it's all men, they have to put themselves in that category too, but it's always better for their narrative to other. And I do think it's rooted in that colonial lie that the barbaric demeanor, the savagery comes from places outside of the quote unquote West. So it suits their narrative to do that, but also it means that it removes them from accountability. So, and I think that's the issue. We need to all hold ourselves accountable for being part of a system that doesn't allow for perpetrators to be held accountable. We are all victims of this system. So as long as we come together and actually interrogate it, and I think we'll actually go places. But if you keep removing yourself from the accountability, then you're part of the issue in my eyes.
Well said.
I think, Curtis, did you highlight another comment that I didn't click?
I think I highlighted one.
I'll bring it up as the last one. Was it this one?
Yeah. Want to read it out?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Curtis is being dangerously naive. If the Greens make the same mistakes as the Labour Party, then we need to reassess simply winning elections. We can't keep making the same mistakes since 2017.
So I highlighted that because I'm not being naive. Because if I was being naive, I'd be like, oh, the Greens are amazing and don't worry about this. It's all going to be fine. Not what I'm saying. I'm simply pointing out that there is a difference between the Greens and the Labour Party in terms of their structures. That's just true. That's just an observation. The Labour Party is not a democratic party. The Greens are a democratic party. There are issues there. And as we've seen with Tony Greenstein, that's an issue. But as I said, I'm saying we shouldn't not support the Greens because actually that's a win for the Zionists. Why? Because one, you're allowing the Zionists to win inside the Green Party, no matter how small the Zionists are. It doesn't really matter about number. It usually matters about outside influence, right? But you're letting these people win, those that suspended Greenstein. You're letting them win. But also on a national scale and a global scale, there is no other political party that has the support of the Greens that is either anti-Zionist or is extremely critical of Israel, insofar that they've called it a genocide, that they will ban weapons and arms sales to Israel. No one is doing that. So it's almost like, do you know what, if we were to say, fuck the Greens then, and in absence of your party, by the way, because that's not going anywhere, there is no viable left-wing party that even begins to hold Israel to account. What, you've got Labour, what are they doing? Facilitating genocide. The Conservatives, they would also facilitate genocide. Reform, massive Zionists, they're going to facilitate a genocide. The Greens at the moment are the only ones where we have an in for anti-Zionism. It's why people like Matt Kennard, who used to work for Declassified UK, massive anti-imperialist, massive anti-Zionist, has joined the Greens. I think 5 years ago, it would have been unthinkable for someone like Matt to join the Greens. I think he would have seen them as more of a liberal capitalist party, and yet he's joined them. Lubna Speighton, a Palestinian woman who's had family, unfortunately, killed by Israel, has joined the Green Party to push for the Zionism is racism is motion. I think it's dangerously naive to be like, yeah, fuck the Greens then, because they're not perfect. And again, there are Zionists in every single political party. The point is to not like lay down and let them win. The point is to fight them. And again, this is one microcosm of a potential dangerous precedent. But there's also the fact that there's 225,000 members of the Green Party. Most of them will not support Zionists. So I was saying, you need to still support the Greens because they're the closest we've got. Vote for them in May if it's a you have a viable candidate, and continue to fight for anti-Zionism within the Green Party, because you sure as hell cannot do that in the Labour Party. At least you're getting somewhere. That's not being naive. That's just being practical, whilst also saying let's be cautious. I'm not saying, oh my God, the Greens are amazing. They're massively anti-Zionist. La la la. Let's ignore the lessons of Jeremy Corbyn. Not saying that whatsoever. So I think it's important, because the last thing I want to see is people just say, oh, fuck the Greens then. Well, where else are you going to go? Unfortunately, we haven't got anything. We've tried, the left has tried to build its own party, your party. And again, I digress. What's happened there? Nothing. Now, of course, next year, if they just shoot up in the polls, they get 30% of the vote. Different story. But at the moment, they're less than 1%. The entire Scottish Your Party is just broken away from them. The Greens is the only political vehicle we've got for redistribution, for the end to neoliberalism, and like a fairly just policy in Israel. Is it as radical as we want it to be? Maybe not. But to at least start off with cutting off any kind of aid to Israel, that's something we at least need to get to.
Well said.
Right. Okay. I think that is it for the comments now. I just want to check if we got any more donations towards the end.
Donos.
I can see that Steve gifted another 10 memberships.
Legend.
Thank you,
Steve.
We got a donation from Exit saying life is a marathon. Keep on running. £10.
Really
Thank
sweet.
you.
Thanks, Exit.
Dingerstar said lotto ticket pending result. I'll kick you out with 80 seconds if I win.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think we need to start with this laptop of Sarah, because I told you that damn bloody
God.
HP.
Yeah, you guys, do you know what it was? The lag.
It was your laptop overheat.
Yeah,
I knew
did
it was
you know
gonna. I
that?
knew. Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah.
So you need a laptop that can take on the oligarchs.
I know,
by buying a laptop off the oligarchs, we use the tech against them.
HP can't stand this activism. Yeah, it's true.
No, I've got
But
real
thanks,
hatred for HP
You do. You have hatred for HP
because they suck.
Listen, HP sauce, HP laptops. You get HP everywhere. It's brilliant. Anyways, thanks, Lewis.
All right. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for a good show. I'll leave you.
Oh, that was brilliant. Thanks so much, Curtis. What a brilliant show.
I missed
what a great way to
this.
start. So do I. Like, I think, you know what? We need to bring our, in-house guest appearances.
I
a
miss
bit
our
more
shows
often.
together. I do.
Same.
But it was a really good show to kick off the launch. I think.
Agreed.
I'm very, very happy, and I'm. You know what? When get yourself. Sorry, I'm plugging it again. Get yourself a Turn Left T-shirt, and you know what? I think it's quite cool because that sounds really old now. Oh, cool! But like it looks like swagger as well, because people think it's probably like a sports T-shirt as well. And what's that? Well, it's Turn Left. What are you doing? Destroying the oligarchs, mate. What are you doing?
Yeah. We're turning left, guys. Turning left. Yeah, that's actually. Sorry, I'm getting
Okay.
Guys, I actually really love it. I love it. Love the launch. Love today's show. What a great way to start Monday. So thank you, Curtis, for your incredible analysis as per bloody usual. And thank you to all of you, everyone who tuned in, everyone who
Name
donated,
Diana.
everyone who
Sorry,
commented, everyone
Diana,
who viewed,
but-
everyone who shared. Oh, sorry. Diane's taken over, and I don't mind a bit of Diane takeover, but wait, it's my show. I need to end it. Remember, we go. Oh wait, sorry. I just want to say thank you, and also don't forget I'm running London on Sunday. So if you can spare any pennies, then please feel free to join the Discord, which they've put in the chat. So if someone could put the Discord again in the chat, and my donation link is there. So please do, if you can, you have the capacity, donate after the marathon, if and when I finish it. No, I will finish it, I promise. But remember, we go live every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 7:30. You've been watching Normal Ireland Live. I'm Sarah Dallal, and I'll catch you guys next time.